Good morning, everybody. I'm here today to continue talking with you about fractions. We will begin Unit 12 today. 12-1 will be our lesson, and we are going to see some of the things that I introduced to you yesterday and then discuss a couple new things as well. So the first thing I want you to do today when you're working is to understand that a unit fraction represents one part of the whole, or one part of the total for a shape or a group of objects, or even on a number line. So as you can see here, I have drawn for you a couple different number lines. Now, before we begin, I just want to point out that when we're discussing regular fractions, we are discussing numbers that lie between 0 and 1 on a number line. So here is the line representing 0, and over here is the line representing 1. Now, all the lines on each of these number lines over here represent 0, and then over here all of these lines represent the number 1. So now if you notice on these number lines, the zeros line up and the ones line up, because when you're talking about fractions, it's supposed to be it needs to be represented evenly and equally. So to begin, we're going to start here with the first unit fraction, 1/2. So 1/2 is the biggest unit fraction that there is. So as you can see here, 1/2 is exactly halfway between 0 and 1. So it means 1 out of 2. So the unit fraction here being represented as 1/2. Moving on to this next number line, again, here's 0 and here's 1. Now it's represented here as 1/3. Now it's 1/3 because there are 3 equal parts. So you can figure that out by sort of skip counting or jumping. So if you start here at 0, you see that there's 1, 2, 3 equal parts, and one of them, because unit fractions always have 1 in the numerator, one of them is 1/3. So again, we had 1/2 because there was 2 equal parts. So it's 1 out of 2, or 1/2, and here is 1/3. It's one jump along the number line out of 3. 1, 2, 3. So 1/2, 1/3. You can see 1/3 is smaller. The interesting thing about unit fractions, as the denominator gets bigger, the fraction gets smaller, because you're dividing that shape or that number line into more parts. So as you divide it into more parts, the parts get smaller and smaller. So here again is 0, here's 1. So this is 1/4, it's 1 out of 4 because 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see 1/4 is smaller than 1/3, which is smaller than 1/2. Now, also with fractions, just while we're discussing it, whenever you have the numerator and the denominator to be the same, for example, 2/2 or 3/3 or 4/4, it's equal to the number 1. It's equal to 1 whole because it's 4 out of 4, or it's 3 out of 3, or so on. So here we're going to skip over 1/5. There's a reason why. I'll explain that in a little bit, but I could have done 1/5 here as well, but I chose to do 1/6 instead. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts, and it's one marking along on that number line out of the 6, so it's 1 out of 6. Again, unit fractions means it's 1 out of that number, and as the denominator gets bigger, the unit fraction actually gets smaller. And then finally down here is 1/8. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts, and it's 1 along. So this really helps to show you that unit fractions get smaller as the denominator gets bigger. Okay, now the next thing is, and you will need to know what unit fractions are today, because a lot of the questions ask you to identify the unit fraction of a given shape or figure or group of objects. So you will see problems like this here today in your work, and I introduced this yesterday, but this is the part that might be a little confusing, so I really want you to pay very close attention. So what you need to do here is look at the figure and decide, first thing you need to do is decide, does each section or portion of this figure have the same number of squares in it. So let's begin here by counting this section here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this section here has 10. This section over here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one has 10. This one has 6. They're not equal. So once you see that they're not equal, double check. But once one of them is not the same, can't do fractions. So what you would do is, for this one, select not equal, or fractions cannot be found, or whatever the option is that it says. Okay, now let's move on to this one, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to decide, are those groups equal? If they are, we'll name the unit fraction. So let's begin here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This section has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This section has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That section has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5 squares in each section. So they are equal. So now I need to find out what the unit fraction will be for this figure. One section represents what fraction? So now it's not the number of squares in each section that's going to give us our unit fraction, it's the number of sections. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 sections. So the unit fraction would be 1 out of the 5 sections. So that's 1 out of 5, or 1/5. 1 in the numerator, 5 in the denominator. This one's a little bit easier. Again, we need to count the number of squares in each section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in this section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in this section. So there's 8 in each portion or section of this figure. So now to decide the unit fraction for one of the parts, one of the portions, I'm going to see that there's 2 groups. 1, 2. So 1 part out of 2, 1 out of 2 is 1/2. So that's the unit fraction for one section of that figure. Now let's move on to this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, hold on one second. I made a mistake. Okay, so now we have to count the number of squares in each section. So here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, again, I had to redraw that line there. So there are 6 squares in each section, so they are even. And now I need to decide how many sections are there. So there's one section here. Again, let me redraw this. One section here, a second section here, a third section here, from here all the way over to here, and then a fourth section here. So one part out of the 4 sections is 1/4. Okay, so there were 6 in each section. Okay, but it's 1 out of 4 sections. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. Okay, before we move on, I want to show you that when you're selecting your answers today, what you're going to need to do is select, okay, yes, they're divided evenly, and then if it is divided evenly or split evenly, you need to input the fraction. So when you click in the box to input your fraction, one of the buttons that you can select looks like this. It's a square on the top and a square on the bottom. So if you select that button, then it will let you type in the top, and then click in the top and type, and then in the bottom, click in the bottom and type. So if I wanted to, again, I'd click this button and then it would pop up, and I would click at the top and I'd put 1, and then I'd click at the bottom for like this example and I'd put 4. Okay, so you are going to need to know that today. Also with your work today, it's one of those types of assignments where you have to choose an answer and click check answer like we did the one time. So when you click check answer, if it's correct, it will tell you you're correct, and then you need to input the fraction. If it's incorrect, it will ask you to try again. So again, choose your answer, click check answer, and then input the fraction by choosing that button that looks like that with a square on top and a square on the bottom, and then you're going to type in 1 out of the total. All answers are unit fractions today, so they'll always have a 1 on top. Okay, you might see a problem that looks like this. All right, for this one here, you would select not even, or if it's asking you for something, you would have to make sure you didn't choose that one, because you can't represent fractions with that shape. You might see a problem that looks like this, and it's going to say maybe, okay, which of these rectangles has 1/4 wavy, or 1/4 polka dot, or 1/4 striped, or 1/4 empty or blank, and so you would choose this one. Here, you might just select, it might just say what is the unit fraction for this shape. All right, we see that it's 1, 2, 3. So again, unit fractions are one part of the whole. So the unit fraction here would be 1/3. And then finally, I just wanted to show you how you can divide polygons evenly. I've drawn a hexagon, but this works with pentagons and hexagons. This is an octagon. And it works with squares too. So and triangles as well. So if you find the center point and then draw a line, now it has to be the center point. If you draw a line from each angle to the center point, you would be dividing the shape evenly. And since it's an octagon, you've divided it into 8 equal parts. If it were a hexagon, it would be 6 equal parts. Pentagon would be 5 equal parts. So that is pretty much all I wanted to cover for today. It is important that you know that unit fractions represent one part of a whole. Again, with the work, when you select an answer, you have to click check answer. Then if it's correct, you'll say okay, and then you would input the fraction, the unit fraction for that figure. If it's like this one, where they were not equal, you would select not equal, and that's all you would have to do for that one. Then you will click next, and then some of the problems have multiple steps, so as you finish one part, a new part might come up. So make sure you're answering everything, take your time through the assignment, and work as efficiently as you can, and pay attention, and take your time. All right, that's it for today. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great day.